Slashing another enemy in half, the blonde-haired girl landed near the core of the dungeon. At first, Nana thought that all enemies had been defeated, but suddenly, 2 more huge hornets materialized from the body of the shattered monster, not inferior in strength to the original. One of the opponents immediately went for a swift attack, while the other hurriedly flew into the girl's blind spot. In the next instant, a hornet scrambled across her back. Not even a couple seconds later, Nana became completely exhausted and helplessly fell dead to the ground. The last person she remembered bleeding was her older brother. Tonight, she had promised him to be back in time for dinner. "I don't think I can keep that promise," the girl whispered quietly before she died. Meanwhile, somewhere in the town of Maku, after shopping for groceries, Ro was on his way home. On the way out, he heard someone call out to him. Waving to the guy, the man with the shovel in his hand remarked that he had quite a lot of groceries with him today. Was his sister really coming back today? Turning around, Ro confirmed it, adding that Nana had promised him to return once the expedition to the Ranker dungeon was over. "This man is a D-rank researcher, Koji Shimura." The boy asked him how he was doing, to which he replied that he was almost fully recovered. After promising the guy he'd stop by again sometime, Koji said his goodbyes. When Ro left, one of the disgruntled cronies standing next to Koji asked why they, risking their lives, couldn't even afford meat while this loser feasted like a king. His buddy in turn explained that the guy has a sister who is a member of 7 Stars, the best organization in Urim. Koji Shimura asked his partners not to be stupid, reminding them that it was Ro who saved Nana from starvation by pulling her out of the slums. Ro has survived since childhood by picking up trash and eating scraps. And while that's quite commendable, one of the buddies did point out that this dude eventually became just a freeloader living off his sister. If she dies, he'll have to go back to poverty. After a while, Ro returned home, placing the grocery bags on the table. The boy looked at his watch and noticed that he was far behind schedule. He travels far from here for fresh ingredients, which made him a little late today. Deciding to hurry up, he set about preparing dinner. After preparing a bunch of delicious dishes, he set the table and began to evaluate the work done with satisfaction. Ro looked at his watch again and noticed that his sister was running late for some reason. Did they leave her on overtime again? And now 3 hours had passed. It was getting dark outside, but Ro continued to wait for his sister at the dining room table next to the cold food. Suddenly, there was a phone call from an unknown number. When the guy picked up the phone, an unfamiliar voice introduced itself as a representative of the Explorers Association. Making sure they got through to a member of the Nana family, also known as the Shining Light of the 7 Stars, a voice from the association reported that she had been killed in the S-rank dungeon. Her death was confirmed 2 hours ago. A spokesperson for the association also asked Ro to keep this information confidential because the death of a member of the 7 Stars could cause serious problems. Before saying goodbye, an unfamiliar voice asked the guy to contact the Researchers Association within a month for compensation and benefits. Hearing this, Ro dropped the phone to the floor and looked up devastated. He couldn't believe his little sister was dead. Memories of her began to flash before his eyes, of how she had asked permission to call him Big Brother, of Nana once again kicking the bullies' asses and asking him if he was okay, and how she promised to come back soon. That day hugging Ro, his little sister asked him not to worry and to prepare something delicious for her arrival. According to her, this expedition shouldn't have been dangerous since she was sent to the A-rank dungeon. That's when Ro noticed the inconsistency in the words of his sister and the man from the association. Nana said she would go to the A-rank dungeon, but that voice reported S-rank. The association uses a special program to investigate the cause if something happens in a S-rank or higher dungeon, especially when it comes to 7 stars. But this time, they ignored the program and contacted the family directly right after the incident. They couldn't find out in just 2 hours exactly what had happened in the S-rank dungeon, or maybe there's something else behind it. 5 days later, the main building of the Explorers Association. Sitting at his desk, the head of the Meiku branch, Rakudo Hotu, asked Mr. Ro what brought him here today. If it's about the shining light, they've already talked about it on the phone. I want to register as a researcher, Ro explained. Such words briefly put the head of the department in a stupor. Realizing what this boy had just said, Rakudo Hotu sighed heavily. The man immediately explained to him that to become a researcher is to walk side by side with death. Besides, Ro has no skills. He is underqualified. He'd been the closest thing to shining a light while she'd been alive. Obviously, she would want her brother to live in peace. However, according to the rules of the Researchers Association, a relative of a researcher can become one regardless of ability. Ro was aware of this rule, which he immediately reminded the head of Miku's department. Realizing that he couldn't do anything against him, Rakudo Hotu had to agree. Before the boy left, the head of the department asked him to stop by here if anything happened or if he had any questions. At last, Ro turned around and looked coldly at the man. The very next second, the office doors closed. You could tell by the look on the department head's face that he wasn't sure this decision would lead to anything good. At the front desk, Ro was given his ID card. Ro, 21 years old, initial rank is E. In fact, the conversation between this guy and the head of Maku's department was a little longer. Rakudo Hotu narrated that the person who was on the team with the shining light used a special item to escape. As soon as he got out, Urim began to prepare a rescue team. Unfortunately, they didn't manage to save her in time. Furthermore, as it turned out, from the information reported to the department head, Nana had indeed been sent to the sealed S-rank dungeon. Hoodoo assumed that the girl had simply lied to her brother about going to the A-rank dungeon so that he wouldn't worry about her. However, Ro will never in his life believe that Nana herself chose to become a noble victim. Are you saying that she willingly agreed to a task that was impossible for her and yet allowed her partner to bail at the most crucial moment, leaving herself to fend for herself? This is some bullshit. Ro will get to the truth no matter what. Sometime later outside of the D-rank dungeon, the heavily armed researchers were already preparing to go inside. Meanwhile, the reserve researchers in blue jumpsuits were discussing whether it was cool to be on the front lines. Some find it fun, while others are content with their current role because they are afraid to fight monsters. 30 years had passed since the dungeons first appeared. Most don't get used to the sight of monsters, even with decades of experience as an explorer. Bottom line, they sit in the rearguard all their lives. Their task is to wait for the frontline explorers to destroy the dungeon guardian. It's the same on this expedition. This time, 2 experienced explorers and 1 newcomer were put in the rearguard. Oh right, there was another guy besides them that they were seeing for the first time. When the blonde-haired big man asked the boy if he was a newcomer, Ro gave him a cold look and confirmed it. Then the man with glasses advised him to stick with them since it was his first time. Today, newcomers should not have much work to do, so all they have to do is watch their elders and learn from them. Before he could finish the sentence, someone's screams suddenly came from the depths of the dungeon. Human screams mingled with the roar of unknown creatures. The frightened rookie asked his elders if they should go help. The blonde man in turn yelled that this kid talks like he hasn't been through freshman training. If they went there, they would simply be eaten. The rookie then narrated that something happened in the association this year that caused the practice not to happen. Such information was clearly not to the liking of the senior researchers. Ro hadn't had any training either, but he thought it was because he had entered the association in an unusual way. It turns out that there was indeed a problem in the organization. Researchers are usually understood to be combat specialists. However, only D rank and above are eligible to participate in combat. Support researchers consist of civilians and rank E researchers. Essentially, rank E are mostly part-time employees. As the elders explained all of this to the newcomers, voices resounded from the depths of the dungeon once again. The explorers from the front ordered the rearguard to approach them sooner rather than later. After walking to the last room of the dungeon, Ro and the others saw the defeated guardian. However, next to the dead monster, they saw their expedition mates mourning the mangled co-commanders. Well, I'll probably censor this one. The author of this manga is too good at drawing, so he showed in good detail how one of the researchers was disemboweled. One of the newcomers could not bear the sight and immediately vomited. This fact pissed off the squad tank. He was about to cripple the asshole, but his partner immediately stopped him. She explained to him that this boy was new and shouldn't be mad at him. Turning to the guys who have experience, she asked them to keep their cool. When the frontline researchers left, the blonde big man slapped the newcomer with anger and ordered him to get to work. After starting to mind the ore, the newcomer asked why they yelled at him even though he hadn't done anything wrong. Ro, in turn, explained that it was disrespectful to the dead and their loved ones. These people turned out to be sensible, and so he was lucky he wasn't penalized for it. The newcomer was surprised that this guy knew so much, and so he wondered how he learned it. Picking up the crate of ore, Ro sadly muttered that he had heard it from someone. One day while he was cooking dinner, his sister told him that a pledge had died that day. It was just practice, but the rookie overestimated himself and got ambushed. Another rookie assistant saw this and threw up. The dead man's friend got angry and killed that newcomer. Nana tried to stop him, but it was too late. Of course, killing someone over something like this is a bit much, but combatants have always been highly supportive. Looking at the huge body of the dead monster, Ro asked the elders if this thing needed a clean-up. The blonde was now convinced that this dude was indeed a rookie. Previously, he was very calm, and so the bulky man began to think that he was pretending. To clear a dungeon, you need to smash its core. But to destroy the core, you must first destroy the guardian. No matter what kind of monster it was, its body only lasts for 30 minutes after death. But for guards, the cooldown starts after the core is destroyed. Monster corpses are worthless. They simply cannot be taken out of the dungeon. But when you defeat a guardian, chances are you'll get a weapon or gear. Sometimes rare items even fall out. Anyway, since the dungeon closes 30 minutes after the core is destroyed, it's time to get the hell out of here. When they left the gate, the elders allowed the newcomers to disperse, saying they would deliver the loot themselves. The salary will be transferred to them within 3 days. Lastly, the man with glasses reminded them that just because support doesn't fight, it doesn't mean it's safe. If they want to last longer, they need to at least practice. The elders left, and Ro continued to stare after them for a while. Clenching his fist, he promised himself to get stronger. 2 days later, he met with the head of Maku's department again. Rakuto Hodu asked for an opinion on the dungeon, to which the boy replied that it was strange and dangerous. Besides, he didn't find anything there worth risking his life for. Such a phrase triggered déjà vu in the head of the department. As he opened the door, he noticed that Ro and his sister did look alike. They went inside the building and found themselves in a large training room. Ro, I find this so strange. Rakuto Hodu suddenly spoke out. The man had made the point that with Shining Light's heritage, the boy could always live in comfort. So what is his purpose? Ro then responded that he can't just relax, live on Nana's legacy. Plus, he's sure that word has gotten out to a lot of people that is trash, mooching off his sister. He's sick of living while people whisper behind his back. Shining Light's death will only be kept a secret for a while, but eventually, it will be noticed that it is Ro who is the sole heir. Rakuto Hoju is pleased with the fact that the boy has decided to become stronger on his own. That's why he decided to introduce him to this man here. His name is Charlie List. He's 37 years old and a member of the Meiku Township Explorers Association. From this day forward, he's going to be Ro's mentor. Yeah, he may look rough, but he's the strongest in Miku's department. Looking at his new apprentice, Charlie asked Rakuto if he really wanted to make him babysit the brat. To dispel all his doubts, the department had told him that this kid was Shining Light's brother. Reluctantly, but Thug still agreed. Ordering the kid to follow him, Charlie asked Rakuto to get the hell out of here and not get on his nerves. Soon the two were left alone together. Charlie immediately guessed that the boy had used the privilege of being the heir to an elite explorer to get here. The man asked if he was sure he hadn't been scammed. Does he have any idea what that privilege means? Explorers are ranked in 6 levels from S to E, but those who exceed even the S ranking are called 7 stars. Elite researchers receive top-level privileges, and even after death, their families partially inherit them, but only if the researchers designate an heir during their lifetime. It is common to write about inheritance in a will, but one part is the rarest and considered the most useless. It is about the right to become stronger and to join an association without hindrance. If everything explained to the boy made sense, Charlie suggested he make his choice now. Choose what? Ro clarified, putting the coach in an awkward situation. Scratching the back of his head, Charlie told the kid that there were 3 types of training: offense, defense, and speed. And since he could hardly present it to him in words only, the man decided to show it in practice. After blowing apart a practice target with his foot, he gave an example of an offensive drill. For press-how defense training, he had 2 mech assistants beat him up. Speed training, on the other hand, is about dodging enemy attacks. After showing the student all of this, Charlie suggested that he choose his own style. Looking around at the wreckage beneath the man's feet, Ro was very quick to give an answer. Defense, he said confidently. The very next day, Ro's training began. Cardio is a very important part of any workout. However, the boy ran for so long that very soon he felt bad. Is there any point in pushing yourself to the point where you want to vomit? Now he was beginning to wonder if he'd made the right choice. When Ro voiced his choice, the coach praised him and commented that he was pretty smart. Charlie's peers often chose either offense to protect themselves or speed to have more time to attack or run. That's why they are all dead by now. This proves that the choices Ro made will help him live as long as possible on the battlefield. Now the guy will have to make his own training regimen. Now Charlie wouldn't think of personally coaching this kid. What's the point of exercising him anyway if he's out of breath after a short jog? To strengthen his body enough to start formal training, Charlie gave the apprentice 2 months. If he doesn't reach the minimum level by that time, the thug will immediately give up on him. And it won't bother him that this dude is Shining Light's big brother. After pondering his coach's words, Ro decided to run some more. Day after day passed, and he continued to persevere in building his body. In addition to physical training, he also studied information about the existing monsters and dangers in the dungeons. One day, he got his hands on a report about the Dagumbai monster. It is an S-rank mystic beast that possesses the elements of air and water and has extremely high physical defense. The boy had no idea that mystical beasts could be so powerful. No wonder Nana was so stubborn and wouldn't let her brother become an explorer. In addition to working out, Ro also consumed a fair amount of meat to gain muscle mass. His less successful colleagues noticed it. Moreover, rumors reached them that this kid went every day to the rest station, a place for rich people to get treatment for injuries and even recover from overwork. He doesn't even have any powers yet he lives a good life. How is that possible? Every day, the boy would go to the park and have a stair run. In the same park, he exercised on exercise machines, and now it's been 1 month since he started his training. Ro has achieved impressive results in such a short period of time. That same day, Mr. Koji Shimo dropped by for a visit. The boy let the guest inside. While he was pouring him tea, Koji said with a laugh that he didn't even recognize Ro at first. He seemed to be practicing quite a bit lately. After saying that, the man suddenly fell silent and looked sadly at the guy. "Hey, Ro, when's Nana coming back?" he inquired. In response, the boy said he had no idea. According to people from the association, she is on a business trip abroad and will not return soon. But noticing Koji's concern, Ro reminded him that they had known each other for a long time. If he was worried about something, he could feel free to ask. Then the man told the guy that the way he has been buying more and more things lately has been attracting attention. As you know, in these times, there are a lot of people who can't even afford a piece of bread. In addition, rumors went around that he goes to the rest station every day. Ro immediately guessed that Koji was worried he might get mugged or something. Indeed, the man wouldn't be worried if Nana was by his brother's side. However, he had heard that something bad had happened to one of the 7 stars. Wary, Ro asked his buddy where he heard it from. As it turns out, Koji accidentally overheard a conversation between several rank researchers. The association seems to want to keep things quiet, but there are people trying to find out what happened. "Tell me honestly, how is Nana doing?" Koji Shimura asked again, but Ro only smiled and explained that if something happened to his little sister, he simply couldn't live like that. After he said that, the two sat in silence for a while longer. Finally agreeing with him, Koji remembered that they had indeed always cared more about each other than themselves. Apologizing for such a strange question, the man said he had a couple more things to do and promised to visit his buddy again sometime. He said goodbye and leaving the apartment closed the door behind him. Ro immediately pulled out his phone and called one of the contacts signed as idiot number 3. "You finally decided to call me," came a voice from the other side. Recalling that he tried to call him 45 times in the last 2 months, the voice wondered why Ro had called him himself so suddenly. Was it because of the 7 stars? Why didn't you just ask for an association? "Well, depending on your attitude," were the last words idiot number 3 said before Ro hung up on him. When the guy called the interlocutor again, the latter had become more cooperative. But just to be sure, he threatened to call his older sister if the dude kept talking nonsense. Idiot number 3 had been trying all this time to figure out what happened to the 7 stars. He found out that one of them had died, but couldn't determine who exactly. The association is desperately trying to cover it up, but that was to be expected since even an injury to one of the 7 stars would draw the attention of the whole country. And since Ro is asking the intermediary about it instead of his sister, idiot number 3 now has reason to believe that something happened to Nana. "I'll go contact your sister," Ro said coldly, tired of dealing with this idiot. The call was immediately cut off, prompting idiot number 3 to throw his phone on the floor and shout that he had acted too hastily when he decided to introduce that bastard to his older sister. This conversation once again made it certain that someone was trying to investigate Nana's death. Is it a power struggle, or are they connected to Nana's death? "Here it is 2 months since I started practicing." Entering the hall, Charlie saw his student and smiled. He had changed so much in such a short time that he was now hardly recognizable. Fortunately, though barely, it still passes the parameters for the start of the real trial. Charlie had 2 pieces of news for the boy, good news and bad news. The good news is that he can only take one kind of training at the moment. But here's the bad news he's obviously not going to like. After all of his training will consist of getting beaten up. After explaining this, Charlie hit the student with such force that he flew back against the opposite wall. Approaching him, the man advised the boy to memorize this power. Once he could resist it, his training would be over. The purpose of this training is to build resilience. If Ro does not die, no matter how hard he is hit, he will live a long life. Inside the dungeons and outside the dungeons, the same things happen. Those who survive are the strongest. You can't be called strong if you die. For starters, Charlie gave his student the opportunity to spar with an artificial intelligence. He was allowed to dodge attacks, but attacking the guy himself was forbidden. Throughout the battle, all Ro did was run away. Then he wondered if there was any point in continuing to do so. If he just dodges, it would defeat the purpose of training. While he was thinking about it, the enemy had already gotten close. Remembering his coach's admonition, the boy decided to stop dodging. Crossing arms in front of him, he took the impact of the machine completely upon himself. Without moving from his seat, he continued to block the blows one by one. Watching this, Charlie was once again convinced that his student was quite smart. With such power, he would be able to train both his speed through evasions and his physical body through blocks. Defense training is often thought to be useless, but at the end of the day, everyone understands that defense is not just about physical strength. Charlie, who was about to get some sleep, was interrupted by a sudden phone call. All last week, he'd only gotten 3 hours of sleep each night. So if he was forced to run any more errands, he'd go to the association and trash the whole office. As soon as Charlie put the phone to his ear, however, his angry expression changed to a serious one. In Mizuyasu village, an S-rank dungeon had appeared in the S-rank dungeon. It had already consumed most of the village. Sitting in his office, Rakudo Hoodoo heard a knock on the door. Once inside, Charlie List told them that Kazami of the 7 Stars had given them the go-ahead. Sure. It would be easier if Shining Light was with them, but Charlie has pretty good powers of persuasion too. Taking a seat on the couch, the thug-savvy one realized that they had no choice but to deal with this problem as soon as possible. They haven't been able to close that gate for over 2 weeks now. Team Kazami went to the dungeon, but in the end, they only came back crippled. Now the next sortie is scheduled for 45 days from now. Charlie would be only too happy to try to close the gate on his own, but he can't replace the 7 Stars member and so now has to wait for his recovery. Also, it looks like there's been an internal rift in the Kazama family. The youngsters have disappeared, so Kazami himself seems to have to search for them soon. 45 days later, a D-rank gate recently opened away from the city. The group of explorers had already crossed the entrance and were heading into the depths of the dungeon. For Woe, it turned out to be his first trip into the dungeon as a warrior explorer. Everyone walked on without saying a word until some bang-headed guy excitedly alerted them that the boss was in the neighborhood, and he was right. The territorial 6-star boss, looking like an infernal rabbit with a horn on his forehead, was waiting for them in his domain. Once they saw him, almost all of the Seekers rushed into battle. Each of them was trying to do as much damage as they could. It looked like they were competing. It was obvious that for such experienced explorers, this battle would not be too difficult. However, why did they rush into battle so confidently, leaving only 3 less experienced teammates behind? Besides, the ease with which they dealt with the boss couldn't help but arouse suspicion. They move as if their rank was at least C or even B level. In that case, why would such people go to such a low-level dungeon? The battle quickly ended with the axe-wielding explorer chopping off the rabbit's head without much trouble. The boss had been killed, and so it was time to go back in. On the way back, Ro was uneasy about the battle. Would it really be that easy? This rabbit was quite weak, and the experienced Seekers themselves behaved strangely, not worrying at all about the rear and fighting alone. There's obviously something wrong with him. The brown-headed boy interrupted Ro's musings, thinking it was strange that the Seekers were moving at such an unbelievable speed. He also thought it strange that they had encountered too few monsters along the way. At the same moment, someone put a hand on Ro's shoulder. Smiling suspiciously, the brown-haired guy motioned for him to move a little forward in the formation. Ro didn't disagree with the older man even though he knew something was amiss. In the end, he and the other 2 newcomers that were standing behind everyone in the battle found themselves surrounded by 5 experienced explorers. It was obvious that these 5 were planning something. No sooner had they reached the exit than an unknown creature suddenly appeared in front of them. It turned out to be a monster, outwardly resembling a playing card combined with a wheel of fortune. It was clear from the faces of the elders that this was exactly what they had been waiting for. Just seeing this thing, one of the newcomers fell to the ground in fear. He immediately recognized this monster. Shouting in desperation that he was useful, the guy pointed his finger at Ro and suggested that he should be the one chosen as the victim. The invisible monster was exactly what those bastards brought the newcomers to the dungeon with them for. One day, returning home after another expedition, Nana told her brother that today, they had stumbled upon an invisible monster. It's a really annoying creature that makes people vote for victims. At first, it just looks like roulette. Depending on the total number of researchers in the team, it is calculated how many people will be left for the monster to eat. When the choice is made, a real monster will appear and kill all those who have been chosen to be sacrificed. There are 60 seconds to vote. Unfortunately, no one knows what will happen if you don't choose targets within that time. Anyone who stayed to fight the invisible monster after the timer expired was forever in the dungeon. This thing makes people kill each other, but some people deliberately seek it out, all because of the rare items it gives in return for sacrifice. Ro then asked his sister if the person chosen in the vote had a chance of survival, and, unfortunately, the chances of survival are extremely slim. Those who lose the vote will have to kill the monster, but given that they are often the weakest, they are immediately killed. Voting has begun. The minute timer has been started. An interactive window with images of all participants appeared in front of the researchers. This time, the victims are supposed to be 2 people. Choosing Ro and that bangly guy, the experienced researchers decided to use the trash as expendable. The timer immediately reset to 0. All voting members except the losers left the dungeon. At the same second, the monster itself appeared. The whole time he was sitting inside that roulette card. Ro prepared for battle while his partner dropped to his knees and began to whine about how they had no chance of winning. Then glaring at him scornfully, Ro asked if he really wanted to die. In response, the bangs guy explained that this boss was 4 times stronger than the guards. They wouldn't be able to defeat him. As soon as he said that, he received a powerful punch to the stomach. As it turned out, it was Ro who sent him flying with a lightning-fast swing of his leg. Thus, he saved his snot-nosed partner from a swift attack by the enemy. After blocking the monster's blow, he jumped back to his squad mate lying on the ground. He then put his sword in front of him and said that he wasn't going to give up even though his opponent was much stronger. Without giving him a second to pause, the invisible monster pounced on him again. At the same time, the expedition of Kazami of the 7 Stars and his men to the S-rank gate near Mizuyasu village was coming to an end. Now a quick clarification. This is not the gate the protagonist went to. Ro went to a low-level dungeon in a different location on the same day. So, yes, we've moved a bit away from the storyline with his fight and into a different location. Standing in front of the portal, Charlie List waited for the explorers to exit. Soon someone's foot appeared out of the gate. Tengen Kazami-shun of the 7 Stars along with his men walked out of the dungeon with sad faces. After giving the extra weapon to his assistant, Kazami told Charlie that Tsuyoshi had been sacrificed. As it turned out, an invisible monster had appeared in the dungeon. The squad refused to sacrifice anyone, but Tsuyoshi stepped forward and voted for himself. Concerned about the situation, Charlie decided to ask if Kazami had eliminated the risk of Child of Luck. Though one of the 7 Stars tried to convince him that there was nothing to fear, the thug explained that he would have to check it out in person anyway. He is to vet the process regardless of who does it because the Child of Fortune is the biggest threat to humanity. A past Child of Fortune used the lives of 4 S-class and 17 A-class explorers to become a powerful assassin. Tsuyoshi is a strong kid, and if he becomes Child of Luck, Charlie will have no choice but to take the life of 7 Star. Summoning his assistant, Kazami asked her to report to the chief that from now on, S-class was not the highest rank in the dungeon. The man put on his jacket and turned to Charlie again. That's when he told me that he had recently received a letter. This letter stated that Shining Light had been revived. Meanwhile, Ro's battle with the invisible monster continued. The enemy did not stop attacking the boy, causing him to quickly lose stamina. After another powerful blow, Ro was thrown aside and wounded in the chest, but the invisible monster possessed the ability to carry out even long-range attacks. He extended one of his tentacles and tried again to finish the guy off. Fortunately, Ro was able to dodge. As much as he hated to admit it, his Bangsy crybaby friend was right. This thing was indeed very powerful. However, if his enemy had 5 times the power of the Guardian, he would be dead by now. In other words, the bastard's just toying with him. The invisible monster can easily extend its limbs. This made Ro realize that fighting at a distance is not the best tactic for him. In addition, throughout the entire battle, this creature never moved its main body once. Assuming that the weakness of the thing was that it couldn't move, the boy made the decision to continue the fight at close quarters. As close as possible to his opponent, he tried to pierce him with his sword. At first, he thought it worked. However, he soon saw something that caused his confidence to be replaced by terror. Another jaw appeared on the monster's body, which immediately broke its sword. Having disarmed the boy, the enemy bound one of his legs. Playing with his victim, the monster lifted him into the air and began waving him from side to side like a flag. Having had enough of it, it slammed the guy into the ground with tremendous force. Ro's body was very well trained, but even it couldn't match such a powerful punch. Watching the monster bullying his partner, the Bangs guy couldn't understand why he kept fighting. No matter what methods he tries, he doesn't stand a chance. Having finally exhausted its victim, the creature brought it up to its muzzle. With its mouth wide open, it prepared to devour the boy. Ro never thought he'd die like this. Already on the verge of death, a vision appeared before his eyes. Holding out her hand to him, his younger sister invited him home. 4 years ago, City Cemetery. A month before, Kasumi Akoma had died trying to save Angie in the dungeon. They had been a wonderful couple. Kasumi was always looking out for Angie and making sure he didn't get depressed. Standing in front of their grave, Ro tried to convince his little sister that this tragedy was not her fault. Of course, Nana knew that. However, ever since Ikoma died on the job, she had become afraid that her brother would die someday as well. What will she do then? That's why she's determined to do what she can for Ro. Her big brother is worth more to her than her own life. Nana knew her brother was going to be an explorer too. As long as she was alive, she wasn't going to let it happen. That day, after stroking her head, Ro promised it would never happen. Plus, she's also the most important person to him, and so he's not going to ignore her wishes. Suddenly, the dying memories were cut short by someone's scream. Sprawling around, the Bangs guy punched the invisible monster, but unfortunately, his sword also shattered into pieces. Trembling with fear, he looked at what was left of his blade. In the same second, the monster kicked him in the stomach, knocking him back into the opposite wall. The flaky guy immediately lost consciousness. Now Ro had finally given up hope. The monster clenching its jaws tightly bit into the guy's right arm. The boy tried to unhinge the creature's jaws, but all was to no avail. He didn't want to die without finding out the truth about his little sister's death. No matter what happens, he won't let anyone get in his way. Deciding that he had no right to die in a place like this, Ro clawed at the monster's limb with his teeth. The enemy did not expect such an action, and so immediately cried out in pain, unhinging his jaws. Ro himself, in turn, had already completely bitten off the creature's tentacle. This allowed him to free himself from his opponent's dead grip. As he fell to the ground, he was already preparing to receive a backlash. As he suddenly looked up, he saw the invisible monster disappear for some reason. As it turns out, tentacles are the weak point of this creature. With his bite, Ro essentially destroyed the core of the invisible monster. Anyway, it's over for him too. With one last apology to Nana, the boy whispered that at least it was a draw. At the same moment, his body was almost completely healed for some reason. Lifting himself up, Ro saw a strange blue system window in front of him. This system window said that after defeating the monster, the user had acquired Hyper Heal. The disposable passive healing special item automatically applied. That was the only reason Ro survived this battle. In addition, after the battle, he had gotten the X-Ryu skill. Some time had already passed since that day, but the guy still couldn't figure out what exactly the skill was for. The notification simply said the name of the ability, but what exactly it did wasn't even mentioned. This time, Ro only survived by a miracle. It made him realize once again how weak he was. As the boy sat on the bed, he received a call on his phone from Koji-san. After speaking with him, Ro said he would go to the site immediately. Seeing his buddy, Koji Shimura greeted him with a smile. Explaining that they weren't ready yet, the man motioned for the guy to sit down. Koji asked his friend if his injuries were okay. Ro responded by saying that he was much better. Thanks to Hyper Heal, he was completely healed in a few days. Sighing heavily, Koji-san pointed out that most people in the dungeons were useless. A balanced and most importantly reliable team was desirable for safe travel on an expedition. Unfortunately, all the famous explorers had already recruited squads. One of the frontline members interrupted their conversation, reminding the support team that it was time to get to work. Offering to talk a little later, Koji said they needed to do their work first. Inside the dungeon, an unusual picture opened before them. As it turns out, it's a resource-rich dungeon with a boss that poses relatively little risk. Koji is disappointed to have been hired as a mere support on such an expedition. Yes, the views in this dungeon are beautiful and it's safe to be here. But you shouldn't eat the first mushrooms you see, or you could get poisoned like this dude. They'll have to spend a lot of time gathering resources here. If Koji had known it would be so boring, he wouldn't have invited Ro here, but at least he could learn the finer points of collecting here. After all, there's quite a lot of weird and different things here. As Ro plucked another mushroom, Koji noticed it and warned him that the thing was useless. Meanwhile, the main squad had defeated one of the enemies. They called out to Koji and asked him to gather resources in the area while the explorers from the front lines moved on. Turning back to his buddy, Koji-san beckoned for him to follow. Ro was about to get up when suddenly the mushroom in his hand began to act strangely. Suddenly, the mushroom simply disappeared from his palm. Looking around, the boy saw this mushroom in the same place where it had originally grown. Only this time, it looked strange. Trying to remember when he had time to drop that, Ro decided to follow Koji-san. Upon reaching the final room, the main squad finished off the guards and had Koji and his assistants clean up the place. For 20 minutes, the helpers continued to gather mushrooms and other useful ingredients. Today, Ro learned that the environment of a dungeon determines what grows in it. For example, his previous dungeon had a lot of minerals. This one has different plants growing in it. Having gotten a drawer full of useful resources, the guy was going to show it to Koji-san. But as he walked toward it, he didn't notice the rock lying under his feet. Stumbling, he dropped the box of mushrooms and fell right in front of the dead monster. His hand casually touched the monster's body. In the same instant, the creature disappeared before everyone's eyes. Such a sight threw everyone into a stupor. The monster's corpse was only supposed to disappear in 1 minute. Deciding that their watches had simply broken, the squad of helpers hurried out of the dungeon. Running out to return, Ro reported to Koji-san that he still had some work to do, and so he wouldn't be able to go to the association with them right now. After saying goodbye to Koji Shimura, the boy returned home in a hurry. Opening the system window, the guy saw that he had 2 flexible myceliums and 1 unusable mycelium in his inventory. These items had fallen to him from the mushroom he had picked then and from the monster's now nearly vanished body. Previously, he was told that monster bodies were useless. But now using the X-Ru skill, the guy can recycle garbage and turn it into useful items. If he was lucky, maybe he could even get some skill. Very soon, however, Ro realized that he would not be able to use Xrus freely. He doesn't have the strength to defend himself. If someone finds out about something this cool, they'll try to take advantage of him. Taking a seat on the couch, the boy wondered what he should do in such a case. Right now, he's not strong enough to go into the dungeon alone. But even if he tries to use this skill when everyone is gone, there is still a chance that he will be caught. He should use X-reuse without attracting attention. That's when Ro came up with a pretty good plan. Sure, it might bother Koji-san a bit, but Ro is sure to repay him for taking advantage of him. Meanwhile, in the domain of the Kazami of the 7 stars, sitting up in bed, a bandaged Bangs guy stares out the window. At the same moment, Kazami entered his room. The angry man asked the boy why he had quarreled with his father and how he had gotten into the dungeon. The flaky guy in turn replied that it's his life, and he decides for himself what he wants to do. Kazami Sr. responded by saying that he himself would not mind if his brother decided to risk his life and do anything. On the contrary, he would respect his choice. But if he still cares about his family, he should value his life more. Being a researcher is not the only thing you can do in this life. Such words obviously made Kazami Jr. angry. Ask your brother to wait. He finally decided to tell him something. I want to leave the Kazami family, he said without a shadow of a doubt. After a while, Ro does exercise. The guy thinks he needs to enlist Koji's support to absorb more monsters. There are 2 main issues to be resolved. The first thing to do is to get some fake IDs and use them instead of the real one. This will reduce the level of risk. 2. Ask Koji to buy back the dungeons. Even a D-rank forest is richer in resources than a C-rank desert. Items produced in a dungeon depend on the environment. That's why some explorers sell dungeons. But if you don't use a trustworthy buyer, you'll often regret it later. So they need someone trustworthy with broad connections. Suddenly, Ro noticed someone approaching. It was the same guy he was in the dungeon with the invisible monster. Yasukage came to Ro to thank him for saving him and to ask him for a favor. The guy really wants to get back on the adventure with Ro. From what he heard, Ro was a little shocked. Yasukage noticed that Ro didn't have super strength, but that didn't stop him from fighting to the very end no matter what. Ro wondered if Yasukage had come straight to this place. He was probably gathering information on Ro. Yasukage didn't want to offend his savior in any way, but Ro advised him to find someone more capable and stronger than him and asked him not to pursue him any further. Technically, Yasukage also helped Ro, so they are even. Also, Ro doesn't like people who give up so easily. Ro once again asked not to follow him. Yasukage was a little upset, but he wouldn't give up. After a while, Ro met up with Koji. The man managed to find a dungeon for sale, though it proved to be quite a difficult task. For some reason, the appearance pattern of dungeons is changing. Because of that, there are problems with the sale offers and the information has become very expensive too. These changes are very suspicious, but most importantly, how it will affect the existence of humanity. Suddenly, a stranger interrupted their conversation. Could it be that Ro has a secret stalker? Ro explained that he'd been in a band with this guy before, and he'd been following him everywhere ever since. Koji called it popularity. The boy approached Yasukage to find out the real reason for his desire to go on a dungeon tour with Ro, but that cowardly boy kept repeating the same words over and over again. Mr. Ro is very strong, and the boy wants to become like him. Ro resists. He keeps saying that he's not really powerful. He's just an ordinary man like Yasukage. He's a scout who watches from behind the scenes. Ro realizes that the guy in front of him is no ordinary man off the street. He asks him not to waste his time. Yasukage is not an ordinary man and has interacted with many strong researchers, but he has never met anyone who fought so desperately for his life despite the obvious advantage of the enemy. Yasukage really wants to become a desperate fighter like Ro. He was tired of being in his older brother's shadow. Ro heard something familiar. Could it be that he was speaking for the same man? Once upon a time, Nana brought a picture of the 7 stars with her. The group was able to get together and take a full photo. It had everyone in it. I mean, Shunsun is Yasukaga's sibling. They are both from the Kazumi family. Though they are brothers, they are quite different from each other. Their personalities are totally opposite. What kind of education does the Kazama family give? Ro once again refuses Yasukaga. He doesn't want to coddle anyone, but just wants to live a quiet life. Yasukage couldn't find the right words to change Ro's mind in any way. Koji intervened in the conversation. It was time to get to work. Ro said goodbye to Yasukage and headed for the dungeon. Upon entering the cave, the explorers found the body of a monster that looked like a large octopus. The job seemed like a lot of work. One of the workers resented the monster's body because it would be impossible to move it to get to the resources. Another researcher has to hurry because today is his daughter's birthday. Ro kindly offered to leave the job to him. There's nothing precious here anymore. He can take care of the rest. The man thanked the guy and promised to give him a treat next time as a token of his appreciation. Lately, Ro has only found ordinary materials and this time, he's hoping for more valuable loot from this monster. As soon as the guy touched the tentacle with his hand, the monster's body began to disappear. Acquired. Dried octopus tentacle 3 PCs. Octopus skin damaged 1 PCs, but the most valuable skill was bronze body. This skill can increase physical durability. If you train with it combined with defense arts, your physical durability will increase significantly. At this moment, one of the explorers returned to the dungeon. The man was surprised for the monster's body had disappeared somewhere. What did the guy do to him? Ro has hidden the dagger behind his back and is trying his best to confuse the man who has entered the dungeon. The man showed a wristwatch. He calculated the time and understands perfectly well when the corpse should have disappeared. Ro is trying to come up with some excuse for the monster's early disappearance, but is there anything he could say that would sound convincing? But more likely, there's nothing to convince this man. Ro tries to humor me by talking about how he just got back here himself and the body is already gone. The man doesn't believe a word he says. He punches the guy in the face and asks him to stop cheating. He personally saw the monster die 10 minutes ago. The man offers one last chance to tell the truth. Suddenly, Ro stabs the man with a dagger. After that, he delivers a punch to the neck, knocking his opponent to the ground. The man falls to the ground. He didn't expect the guy to be able to do that. Ro drew his dagger. He was giving the man a chance to get back up. After these actions, Ro began to move toward the exit as if nothing had happened. The man stared after him. Could these rumors be true? His eyes began to slowly close. After a while, Ro washes his hands clean of blood. Guy looks at himself in the mirror. He realizes he's committed murder. But what's weirder, he even seemed to enjoy it. In a world where it's unclear whether the law even function, murder isn't anything unusual. He's not gonna make excuses. Murder is murder, but he won't let anyone get in his way. It's been a month. Ro's still involved in the dungeon sweep. He tries to take his time and finish his work at the very last minute to prevent situations like the one that led to the victims. Many people were skeptical of his work because he was the last to finish each time, finding many excuses for his tardiness. This time, the reason for his delay was a sprained ankle. His partners asked him to be careful and to keep track of time. In the meantime, since the cleanup is over, they asked that the collected materials be handed over to the principal investigator. Ro for many has already become their trusted workmate. The newcomers wondered how this guy is trusted to transfer all the booty to the chief researcher because he can easily steal something. But for all this time, Ro has earned a lot of trust. He gladly takes on any task and performs it honestly. As of late, a lot of people are trying to get on a working group with him. One of the employees asked why he would even work if he was Shining Light's big brother. Perhaps something happened to his sister and is trying to help it somehow, but why in a hole like this? So many questions and so few answers. After a while, Ro heads home with his purchases. Walking past the alleyways, the guy spotted someone. Ro asked him to stop following him. Yasukage is nervous because he's perfectly hidden and can't be seen. Ro walks over to the stalker and grabs him by the shoulder. Greatly frightened, Yasukage screamed. He started to stagger back, and as a result, he hit his head on the wall. Ro is surprised because for a coward like this guy, he's good at tracking people down. But here, covert stalking takes practice. Yasukage asks for one single chance again. Yasukage asks again for a single chance, but his strength is running low and is beginning to have doubts and sometimes considers giving up. Ro doesn't utter a word and silently continues walking home. Yasukage started to follow the guy and talk about how he probably found something he could be useful for. Ro smiled. What could be the use of such a weak man? Yasukage said he could be useful in selling the goods that Ro is trying to sell. The main character was troubled. He didn't like that this kid was able to sniff out his business. Yasukage saw the menacing look on Ro's face and began to explain what had happened in more detail. Yasukage saw the menacing look on Ro's face and began to explain in detail what had happened. Yasukage has connections and won't pry out more than necessary. This will definitely be good for Ro. Even though Yasukage doesn't have the power, he has enough value to make up for it. If Ro keeps selling alone, sooner or later, someone will notice. Maybe teaming up with this guy wouldn't be so bad. Ro tried to say something, but something stopped him. There was a noise outside. In such a safe place, there was an explosion. Looking at a neighboring building, they noticed two human silhouettes on the roof. It was Yasukage's older brother, but who was the other person? Next to him, an unknown person in a white cloak was flying in the air. The guy in the mask didn't expect to catch one of the 7 stars. It was a pretty big fish. Shunsun pointed his hand at his opponent using some sort of skill. Its power was able to muss his hair and tear his hood. The unknown man wondered why the guy immediately started attacking. Didn't he want to ask or learn anything about his opponent? Shun's just closed his eyes. Apparently, he had very different plans. To him, it was of no consequence. The unknown man was puzzled, a brightly colored villain who appeared spectacularly in public. He had to work hard to make a living so he could show a little respect and cooperate. Shun's is willing to cooperate, but only after he kills him. It was to be expected of divine right to be so ruthless. Unknown thought it was rude, but they can do it. Shun's attacks first and throws himself into the fray. Unknown blows the fireball he just created off the palm of his hand. Shun tries to counter with a takedown. As soon as the fireball and sword make contact, there is a violent explosion. At the same instant, Shun's sword appears from the cloud of smoke. Unknown easily stops his attack as he expected his opponent would not be too easy. At the same moment, a second sword point approaches the unknown man's right ear. Shun clobbers his opponent with a jab to the near side of the face. The second sword flies out of the hands of the unknown cloaked man. Shun pulls it to him and catches it with his hand. The guy is surprised. He now has new information regarding Shun's. Now he knows this guy has a two-sword skill. Smiling, the guy said, starting to get nervous. While the two fight, Yasukaga and Ro continue to monitor the situation. Younger brother pulls forward slightly. He wants to do something about it. Ru grabs the guy's shoulder sharply. Does he really think he can help his brother in any way? Even if he bravely rushes forward, he will simply be killed. If he truly cares about his brother, he should prioritize his own safety. Shun is the strongest leader of the 7 stars. But who is this guy in a robe? How can he be so confident that he can handle him one-on-one? Ro grabs his phone and takes a picture of his attacker. Yasukaga realizes that it's the smartest move to remain unnoticed, but is there really no other option? Ro turns around and heads home. They have to do what they can. A moment later, the boys are standing at the door from Ro's apartment. Ro promises to think about the proposal and get in touch as soon as he thinks things through well. Yasukaga asks the guy to hang on a minute longer, but at that moment, the door closes in his face. He hoped he could participate too. Once inside the apartment, Ro began searching for information about the mystery man. He downloaded all the data into the computer and tried to find any clue. Ro is scrutinizing every frame. There has to be something that will help this case. In one of the shots, the guy notices a strange emblem on the inside of his cape. He's urgently calling someone and asking for attention to the mark. I need any information regarding this image he just sent. About 30 minutes passed and the long-awaited call came. The voice on the phone told me it was a rank researcher, Komoria man. The design is based on his favorite cat, but he was confirmed dead last August. Ro was surprised because they said dead, not fallen in the line of duty. That's right. He wasn't killed in the dungeon. He died near the entrance to an A-rank dungeon. Apparently, the body was in a horrifying state, but the culprit still hasn't been identified. The voice from the phone inquired where the guy had seen that coat of arms. This question made Ro suspicious as to why he was inquiring about something like that. In any case, if Ro has seen this or noticed this symbol somewhere, he should stay away. Unless the person on the other end of the line is mistaken, that mark means it's a plunder. Ro doesn't understand what war trophies we might be talking about. The guy opened the balcony door. Stepping onto the balcony, he noticed an unknown man in a white robe leaving the place. The voice on the phone goes on to explain that this emblem was probably a common trophy that denotes a symbol of victory. Ro asks to share any leads the person on the other end of the phone has. Stealing someone's crest and keeping it as a trophy, as far as he knows, only a group called Cruz does that. And the man in the footage is shrouded in more mystery than Cruz's boss. All that's known so far is that he's called Zed, and nothing else is known about him. Ro wonders what this strange organization is. The girl sitting in front of the guy asks him to put her on speakerphone so she can hear their conversation too. As the guy puts it on speaker on his phone, he wonders if Ro has heard anything about these guys. Nana mentioned them once. If that's the case, then Ro should know that this is an international group with a pretty complex structure. And the important thing is that they are pretty crazy, but they have a strong unity. There was silence for exactly a moment. Apparently, he was thinking of something. Realizing what's going on, the guy asks Ro to stay out of it and investigate alone. Ro asks to share all the information he knows and not to lie. Rumors about Nana have already spread in some circles and it will soon become public. Ro wants to understand where these rumors got their roots, where exactly he heard it. At that moment, the girl holds out a business card that says Daisy. The guy explains it's some kind of Daisy trading company. They deal in information, but they're not shady enough to sell this kind of stuff. The guy got wind of the rumors and he got the chairman to give details. Ro understood and asked him to continue collecting information about who collects trophies just enough so that it doesn't hurt him. The boy asked what Ro planned to do now. Most likely, if the rumors about Nana spread, he'll need to move. That was the end of their conversation and Ro hung up the phone. The guy had started preparing the moment he suspected Koji might have reported Nana's death, but he hadn't expected the association to hide it so carefully. He just glad they weren't using her as bait for profit. After a while at the training center, Ro continues to practice the defensive arts. Guy notices a punch coming at him from the left side. He takes the attack with his body. He was just in time to duck and put his shoulder to the ground. The onslaught of vehicles continues. Once the robots got dangerously close for some reason, they stopped. At that moment, Charlie walked into the training room. He was impressed with how quickly the boy was developing. Ro thanked Charlie for being a good mentor. The man said it wasn't his fault because he hadn't taught him much and the guy's only been here a few times. Normally, someone with a body like Ro's, no matter how talented, wouldn't be able to handle 2 training robots in such a short amount of time. Ro realizes it's all thanks to the system and its improvements. Charlie realizes that something is wrong here, but is not going to ask what's wrong because that would be unnecessary curiosity. Well, the other question is why he's here today. After all, the boy had certainly not come for training. Ro looked at Charlie in silence. Apparently, the guy came to find out about Kazami-shun's hun who almost caused a disaster. Charlie took a seat on the step and motioned for the boy to join him. What happened that day? It almost destroyed the entire city of Miku. It was quite shocking. He may seem cold-blooded, but when he snaps, it's over. That fight with the White Robe was nothing. White Robe was strong, the only one who had ever gotten Kazami this far. But the big question is how he provoked Kazami-shun because Shun was on the verge of losing control as a result. Ro must have heard from Shining Light that Kazami is the strongest of the 7 stars, but that's assuming he's not curbed. The truth is Kazami is the only one of the 7 stars with a limiter. If it's removed, he'll eventually become a killing machine. In those days, the ranks of the 7 stars were based on strength. First place went to Nana. She was the strongest, so the records say. But at the same time, they said that Kazami-shun was truly the strongest of them all. Ro was certainly interested in hearing it, but that wasn't why he'd come here, or rather, it wasn't what he wanted to hear. If the guy didn't come to find out about Kazami, then he wants to find out about the White Robe. That's exactly what Ro was interested in. Charlie is ready to tell, but he wants to hear a good reason. Nana didn't die just from a dungeon run. These guys must have known that long ago. Charlie agreed with the guy's assertion. Charlie said he had planned to use Ro as bait to lure out the white coat, but now Ro can safely retreat. Ro was confused. Charlie was plotting to keep the guy in the dark. Charlie explained that if he told him, there was no going back. But if the guy hears it now, there's a 99% chance he'll die, which goes against the wishes of the Shining Light. Does he really want to know everything? How far he's willing to go? White Robe, a member of a brand new completely unknown band called the Saints, and 7 stars are forced to choose a new member. Ro inquired why suddenly invite a newcomer. Is it really because of these Saints? Charlie replies that they don't know anything about the Saints, but their target is clear. Ro tries to figure out who they are targeting. Are they looking for all the Seekers or just the 7 stars? Either way, it's the same thing. If all the Seekers are destroyed, he'll end up meeting the 7 stars. On the other hand, if he takes the 7 stars, the rest of the Seekers are essentially worthless. The only thing they know is his code name. Anyway, the villains always say the same thing. They just start ranting on their own. It's like some cult that worships a dark god. And to a large extent, there are idiots like that at all times and in every era. Ro inquired if any of them had chosen a Shining Light already. Charlie asked that even if there is a Saint-level threat, do they really need to find a replacement so quickly? At this point, the guy seemed to have guessed one little trick coming from the 7 stars. To him, Nana is not just a Shining Light. She is his little sister. 7 stars. It is their nation's strongest shield and spear. If Nana's death becomes public, the country will definitely fall into chaos. After that phrase, Ro realized the full picture. Much to Charlie's dismay, it was the only way out. The guy was furious. He was trying to understand why no one was telling him the truth. The association's job now is to find a new actor to replace her sister. And so that no one will know that Nana is dead, all the news will say that she is still alive but in a different place. From the beginning, it was a well-thought-out plan. Charlie tried to warn the guy that several countries had made alliances and opened a hunt for him. The guy didn't care because from the beginning, no one wanted to listen to him and the whole thing turned out to be an unfinished play. Ro leaves to deal with his problems and Charlie holds his head. He said right away he wanted no part of this. After a while, the guy comes to some woods. According to the map, he's in the right place. And due to recent events, he won't be able to go to the guild for a while and self-learning has its limits. That's why he only has this plan left. He had to pay a fortune for this information. He really hopes it is up to date. After making his way through the dense thickets, the guy finally found the portal. The Daisy Trading Company was incredible. They were able to find the entrance to the dungeon in such a remote location. Wasting no time, the guy walks into it. In front of him was a cave filled with water and sparse trees and plants. Ro picks up a rock from the ground and hurls it into the middle of the pond. Suddenly, a huge shark jumps out of the water trying to grab a rock. The guy must have been completely out of luck. He was planning to train here, but from the looks of it, it's not going to work out. Ro wants to check out what else this cave is hiding. Quickly jumping from rock to rock, he approaches the middle of the pool. At this point, the shark tries to attack again. Ro stops her with an armbar and slams her back into the water. This is the first time in his life he's ever been so annoyed by a fish. Before he can think about it properly, at that moment, several more aggressive sharks try to grab the guy. Ro tries to return to the entrance to the dungeon, but one of the sharks blocks his way. The guy fends off the shark with one left jab, which seems very easy. Back at the entrance, the guy is glad the amphibians don't show up in E-ranks dungeons. Otherwise, there's no way he could have handled so many. Before I could finish my thought, the sharks started jumping out of the water and they landed already on land, leaning on two paws. Ro looks on in horror at what is happening. Is this some kind of prank? The carnage begins. Apparently, a fish cannery is going to open here. After a while, the guy was the only survivor in that room. He was very lucky he wasn't pulled underwater. After catching his breath a little, Ro began to reap the fruits of his labors. It was quite the catch. In addition to meat and scales, the guy also got some shark eyes. They say water monster pearls are good for the skin, but who would use something so crude? In any case, getting 2 pearls from all these monsters is quite a good reward. After all, even the bosses have a low level of rare item drop. Ro walked further down the hallway and into the next room. The guy saw a big butterfly sitting on a flower in front of him. Could it be the boss? Butterflies are generally deadly, their scales often causing hallucinations. The real danger is that they can be poisonous. Ro throws his dagger straight at the target. Maybe he'll get it out of there. The blade hits the target precisely. The strange liquid filling the hole around the flower the butterfly was sitting on begins to disappear. As soon as the water completely disappeared, the root of the flower could be seen. But the most interesting thing was that in those roots was a large shining stone. Ro abruptly grabbed his dagger. Was the butterfly just a show-off and the swarm of fish a real threat? The guy's swinging a camping knife, and again, it's a clean hit. The crystal shatters into tiny shards. Maybe it wasn't that bad, and the guy got lucky today after all. If this was a real boss, Ro would probably be dead by now. The guy crouched next to the butterfly to get some useful resources. Touching it, he saw the notice. Acquired. Serendipity 1 PCs. One day, you'll have an unexpected encounter. After a while, Ro was jogging. Suddenly, Koji came across his path. Ro scooted closer and greeted the man. Koji noticed how the boy is getting stronger day by day. Also, Koji is looking for a reliable team, so he decided to introduce the boy to someone. The man promised to send him their contact information a little later. This time, Koji still had a lot of different questions. One of them had to do with the corpses of the dungeon bosses. Why was Ro collecting them? But the guy just said nothing in response. However, since the dungeon's patterns had started changing, no one was selling dungeons anymore. To break down more corpses, Ro was asking Koji for info on anyone selling dungeons or boss corpses. Not getting an answer to the first question, Koji asked the next one. Since Koji is helping the guy a lot, he wants to know what Ro and Nana have in common, if there's any news from her. Do rumors really spread so fast? Thought Ro. Koji said that there were rumors about Nana, or rather that something bad had happened to her. When something happens to the 7th star, everyone panics. In addition, the rules for passing dungeons are changing for the members of the Seekers Guild as well, so the entire crowd in the Seekers Guild is very alarmed. Ro began to reassure Koji. The guild would take care of it quickly, so there was no point in worrying. Nana said that her mission would be over soon, and when she returned, they'd all have dinner. And probably the last question Koji wanted to ask was where Ro had been lately. I've been holed up doing intense training, answered the boy. Ro was evasive again, for in truth, was biding his time in the dungeons. Koji listened to everything the guy told him. Whether he believed him or not, we won't know yet. The answers were all very logical. The guy had a good fit, great mood. On that note, they said goodbye. The man went about his business and Ro stared intently in his wake. The boy wondered for a moment if he was stronger. Would he be able to get his little sister back? After a while, Ro returned home and found Yasukage at the front door. Yasukage was glad to see him. Ro wondered how long the boy had been waiting for him here. Full of optimism, Hachiko said it wasn't long at all, about 10 days. Ro walked into the apartment followed by Yasukage and asked in a trembling voice if he could come inside. Ro replied emotionlessly, "You can leave now." Yasukage is overjoyed as Ro should make him his teammate. Isn't Yasukage always so friendly? Ro pondered the boy's proposal. If the only thing he wanted was to go to the joint dungeons, the answer would be no. If Yasukaze thinks that Ro is very strong, then unfortunately for him, it's a mistaken opinion and they have nothing more to talk about. There's something else they can be good allies in. The question is whether Yasukaze can do it. Ro want Guy to sell something for him over a long period. Guy will get 30% and Ro will get 70%. Don't care how he sell it, but one condition of him. Don't let anyone know Ra is involved. Yasukaze agrees to help. He's quite familiar with business skills. Ru can also help with a training plan for the guy if that's what he wants. A new business partner is incredibly happy to hear such news. That's a good place to end it for now. Ro is very busy and asks Yasukaze to go to his house. Ro provided the guy with a phone number and said he would contact him soon to discuss details. 7 days later, Ro went on another dungeon sweep. The dungeon info Daisy Trading gives is getting further out into the countryside. This time, they bought info on 3 E-rank dungeons from Daisy Trading. They are in remote areas, far apart from each other. Good location dungeons are in high demand and rarely appear on the market. Also, with dungeon patterns changing, Daisy Trading is selling fewer dungeons. Also, Ro didn't get any coherent answers before he left, but there's hope that younger brother Kazami will be there with good news. Another gateway to the dungeons is in the Bamboo Grove location. Suddenly, a very strange snake pounced on the guy, but Ro managed to fend off its attack. It was very strange. Animals should avoid dungeons. She shouldn't be at the entrance like this. But what if it's because of the changes in the dungeon layout? That could bode big trouble. We have to hurry. Ro walks into the portal. This place turned out to be quite familiar. The scenery is similar to the real world, but the flow of time seems different from outside. Once again, an unexpected attempt at an attack. This time, it was a piece of bamboo, but no sooner had the lads stood up than the very same snakes immediately swooped in. One snake was cut right in the air. The other was clenched in his fist, after which they tossed in a live corncob or whatever it was. The numbers of monsters keeps increasing. At this rate, they are stuck. After running a few meters away, Ro stopped. Something wasn't going the way he'd expected. All the monsters stopped attacking. It was as if the guy was outside their range. Ro is a bit frustrated as he was unable to collect such a large amount of good material, but there is a very promising cave ahead. As he got closer, the guy saw the unknown man. First thought, since it's a dungeon, it's probably a humanoid monster. But why would it suddenly appear in an E-rank dungeon? Humanoids are the rarest monster type. Since dungeons appeared, fewer than 100 have been confirmed. Another reason so few have been confirmed is that everyone who's seen a humanoid has died. The mysterious humanoid asked if they had met anywhere before.